Welcome back. She is a serial entrepreneur with a knack for innovation. Michele Romanow joins me now to tell us about her new podcast that, get this, focuses on failure, which is so important. We say good morning to Michele. How are you?
Morning. I'm fantastic.
Awesome. Okay, so the show's called The Revisionaries. And here's the thing. We were talking over break. You always hear about entrepreneurs and their success stories, right? Like you talk to the founder of Knack, Canada Goose, Endy, all have great stories. But what got them there? And that's where you dig in.
Yeah, and I think that happens entrepreneur to entrepreneur, because even when people tell my story, they're like, oh yeah, one thing came after the next, came after the next. Meanwhile, they didn't know that I felt like a failure 80% of the time. Everything's not working. And that's the real story about how entrepreneurs grow that like grit and resilience. I can tell you that when we filmed these, I didn't know half of the stories. Like the founder of Endy, I had known him for 5 years, and the conversation we had was so intimate because I started the conversation being like, everyone knows the success. Now let's talk about all the bad stuff.
Yeah, I hear that. I was reading this one interview of you saying that you were recording, obviously during COVID, and you were recording in your closet, right? Because you need it for the sound. So it's so very fitting. You know, here you are, this amazing entrepreneur, the youngest dragon on Dragon's Den, but you're sitting in a closet to record this show.
It's actually better than that. I'm sitting in my own closet. So my dirty sock is beside me. I have clothes all around me. And then all of my guests had to do the same because you need, no echo for audible. And so they're in their closet. I'm in my closet. COVID's just started. Everyone is like completely uncertain. And we ended up having these conversations that just completely opened things up. And so I think if you're, especially in this period, thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, starting your own business, or just want to hear the behind the scenes tale of how some of the biggest brands were built, it's really eye-opening for that.
There was a recent survey that showed almost half of Canadians surveyed said that they're looking to leave their job right now. So everyone's reevaluating life, work, education, everything. So what is the biggest piece of advice for someone who's looking to start out on a new path? Is it built within them to be an entrepreneur, or can you learn that?
Oh, I think being an entrepreneur is definitely a skill set that you can learn. It's about using a little bit of your risk-taking muscle. And my best advice is to just start. There's this thing that we do where it never feels like it's the right time. We have enough money, we know enough. But the reality is as an entrepreneur, and you'll learn from this, the podcast, the Revisionaries, like most of these businesses, the founders didn't know anything about mattresses before Endy was started or anything about underwear. And so that, I think, is the magic. Is if you're thinking right now, I mean, it's an incredible stat that 50% of people are thinking about what they should do next. Like, now's the best time to take the plunge. Plus, in many ways, there's no other distractions. None of us are going on trips and all sorts of other things. It's like diving in to start a business right now, especially as the world has totally changed what is needed. I honestly couldn't think about a better time.
That's fair. But what about if you have to balance things like, so finances, you mentioned that too. What if that's tight right now and you want to take a chance, but you're not sure where to put an end to it? You know what I mean? So how much risk are you willing to take? Because all these other things may fall along the wayside. So where do you draw those lines for yourself?
Yeah, I think that, you can start really small and start testing ideas, right? It's now so easy to put up an e-commerce store or figure out, on the internet if people want your product. And so really, instead of thinking about, businesses where you're taking out a long-term lease and building a giant brick and mortar store and putting your life savings in them, think about, is there a cheaper, easier way to try this out? And you're 100% right. Sometimes I know that families are at home right now. This may not be that right moment. But if you find yourself in that own personal window, I don't think you need to think about putting everything on the line. I think you need to feel like, let me run a couple tests and then I can see. And, you'll see that with most of these founders, they ran a couple tests, things started working. Also, a lot of things didn't work. And it was just that process of iterating a lot that ultimately led to a big innovation.
Love it. Okay. Finally, what is your biggest piece of advice that you wish you told yourself, I don't know, 5-10 years ago as an entrepreneur?
I look back and I wish I wouldn't have sweated all of the small stuff. I think I agonized over every decision. I tried to make them all very quickly. But if I could give myself a little bit of that sleep back and remember that like what really mattered was just shots on goal, that I had to get up every day and I had to try something new, that would be way more important than agonizing over every decision.
Awesome. We're always learning, right? Absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah, Michele Romanow, host of the Revisionaries, available now on Audible. Michele, thank you so much. I think you've inspired me to figure something out. I'm staying here, though. I'm staying here, but I've got to figure something out. Big dreams. Thanks, Michele.
I know. Thank you.